Welcome to Sumita Roy's English classroom. I'm Professor Sumita Roy, and this is the last of the videos we have on tenses. We started with the simple tenses, then we went to the continuous ones, then we had a video on perfect tenses. Now, this is the last of the divisions, and that is perfect continuous tenses. Perfect continuous tenses are a combination of perfect, which means action is complete, and continuous, that means action goes on for a certain period of time. When you remember these two facts, the tenses will become very easy. So first we shall look at the structure of the present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, and future perfect continuous, so that you know how the verb is to be used when we use the perfect continuous tenses. Then we shall talk about the uses of the present perfect continuous, then the past perfect continuous, and the future perfect continuous. Each of them have a different use. We shall see these. All of them have examples. So we shall talk about first, after the structures, some examples, then after the uses, some more examples. Then we have an exercise to check whether you have learnt this perfect continuous tense and you know how to use them. You must remember that the present perfect continuous tense is a very rare tense. We don't use them very often. They are used very rarely. And especially the future perfect continuous is hardly ever used. But since we are learning grammar systematically and formally, because many of you are interested in grammar, the majority, of course, wants English quickly, so they don't want grammar. That is wonderful. You can learn a language without learning grammar. I always give the example of the mother tongue. We don't read a grammar book before we start speaking the mother tongue when we are hardly a year old. So if you can learn a language naturally, that is wonderful. But in case you have a problem, in case you want to improve your English more than the simple basic level of English, then grammar becomes essential. When you want to reach the advanced level of English, when you want to use English in every context, a very sophisticated level of English, there grammar becomes essential. Once you learn the rules and you practice them for a few days with great interest, you don't really need to come back to grammar again. But the process of learning the rules is a difficult process, which you might find, rather boring. But grammar rules, grammar learning is a very exciting process if you do it right. And that is why I'm giving so many videos to all of you with formal grammar. Those of you who wanted a grammar textbook can put all these videos together and your textbook is ready. We have many more items of grammar to do. We shall do them one by one. The first thing which we should know is, how does the perfect continuous tense look? How are we going to derive it from the root verb? Suppose you take the verb to sleep, or to play, to write, to clean, to study, to pray, to conduct, to buy, to ask. These are the verbs, the root form of the verb. Now, change the root form to the present participle of the main verb. That is the ing form. So sleeping, you see in all the three columns, the main verb is the same, and that is the present participle. That is sleeping. So throughout sleeping, then playing, then writing, then cleaning, then studying, praying, all the three forms, present, past, and future, have the same ing form. Conducting, buying, asking. Now, here we are using the verb form to conduct. See, the pronunciation is important because the pronunciation videos we need more and more of you to watch in order to improve your pronunciation. If we use this word as a noun, we say conduct. And if we use it as a verb, we say conduct. Conduct. Second syllable stress. Noun, first syllable set, conduct. The con becomes kun in the second, that is verb usage. So you need to remember this also. Although we are doing grammar, I gave you a little hint on pronunciation. Then buying, then asking. All the forms are ing. Now what happens is that we have to use the perfect tense, which uses to have in the tense form, the with the past participle. That is the rule of the perfect tense. To have tense form, to be past participle form. So we are using that and we are combining it with the continuous form, which uses the ing. So the first part is the perfect and the second part is the continuous. You join those two rules, you get the perfect continuous rule, the structure. So we have been sleeping, has been sleeping. He, she, and it will take has. Has been playing for he, she, and it, have been playing for all the other forms. First person singular plural, second person singular plural, third person plural will use have. And only the third person singular uses has. So throughout we have the same form. In the past tense, no confusion. So throughout had been. We use had been sleeping, had been playing. And then in the future, we have two forms, will and shall for to be. And then we have, you know, have, will have, shall have, because that is the future form of have. Have, will have been sleeping, shall have been sleeping. In this way, all the verbs which I have used are in the same format. You can easily see each of them you read carefully. I'm not reading it all out to you because now we have arrived at the last of the videos of the tenses. So structurally, you are perfect by now. You don't really need me to explain in great detail. What I will explain to you is the uses. There I will spend more time. But here, just reading them out to you is not necessary. Those of you who cannot see the slides on your phones because the slides might come in a very small format, for them, I have already read out to you the verb root verbs like sleep, play, write, clean, study, pray, conduct, buy, and ask. Now it is up to you to make the table for yourself. For the present perfect, you will say has been sleeping, have been sleeping. For the past perfect continuous, you will say had been sleeping. And for the future perfect continuous, you say will have been sleeping or shall have been sleeping. Shall is used only for the first person singular and plural. Will is used for the second and third person, both singular and plural. Now, write down all the verbs which you know and put them in the present perfect continuous. In fact, write down all the verbs you know and put it in all the 12 divisions of the verbs and time and tenses which I showed you in the first slide, that is lexical verb number 2, simple tenses. There, the entire chart is there. If you can make that similar chart with hundreds of verbs which you know, then you will find that you never make mistakes in the use of verbs at all. The maximum mistakes we find are in the use of the correct tense of the verb. This is where maximum mistakes come. So please be very careful And once you know the structures, it becomes that much easier. Here are some examples using the verbs which we had in the earlier table. Here I'm referring to a story, Rip Van Winkle. If you haven't read it, you can read that famous story. The old man in the story has been sleeping for 20 years. Has been sleeping. It started in the past, it continued in the present, now it is going to end in the future, 20 years. So that is the use of the tense, the present perfect continuous form, has been sleeping. Since it is old man, third person singular, therefore we are using has instead of have. Our team had been playing matches for 6 months last year. Now, this is perfect continuous in the past. So the action continues for some time and ends in the past itself. So you see, our team had been playing, past had been playing for 6 months last year, not this year, not now, but last year for 6 months. Continuously 6 months they played in the last year. The author will have been writing his next novel by this time next year. So we are not talking about this year, we are talking about the future. So an action which will continue and come to an end in the future, that is what we have here. The author will have been writing. Author is third person, so we are using will have been writing, future form, his next novel. Now he is writing the present novel. He will write another novel, the next novel, and that is next year. So future, this is called unrealized tense. The tense has not happened yet. It is all future. It is all visualized to happen in the future. We have been cleaning the garden for the last 1 hour. Now we will stop cleaning. So continuous action, past, present, future. It is going to stop after the time of speaking. So we have been cleaning is the present perfect continuous. The perfect is not ended, unlike the present perfect, which ends in the past, here it continues through the present. We have been cleaning, that means the process is on and it will end immediately after you have stopped speaking. So it is going from the past, crossing the present, and going to the future. Then the whole group, uh, you had not been studying before the examination. Now somebody has failed, so they come and tell you, oh, I failed. Then you say, you had not been studying before the examination. Why did you fail? You had not been studying. Process is continuous, but you did not do it, negative. The whole group will have been conducting programs in their own cities. Now, this is a future plan you are making. The whole group will have been conducting programs, maybe next year, maybe next month, maybe next week, in their own cities. I have been praying for your good health. Now, process is continuous. I have been praying. This is a common usage. Future perfect continuous is used very often. Future, present perfect continuous, I'm sorry, not future. Present perfect continuous is used very often. Future perfect continuous is used very rarely. Please understand that the present perfect continuous, we often have to use it. Very many times in your speaking or in your writing, you might need it. But future perfect continuous is a very, very rare usage. We use it not very often. Uh, she has been buying milk from this person for many years. Again, you have present perfect continuous. The officer has been asking for an explanation from everyone in the office. So all these you find that more examples have been given of the present perfect continuous, few of the past and the future. Past is of course used, but not so rarely as the future. not so often as the present. This you have to keep in mind. The examples are there in front of you. Now we come to the uses. How do you use the present perfect continuous? I have already explained. Now you can see it on the slide, and you can also listen to this, that an action which has begun before the time of speaking. The action is begun in the past and is continuing in the present. It will come to an end in the future. That is what you have to keep in mind. When you are using the present perfect continuous, it has to be a continuous action. It has to start before the time of speaking, and it should have an ending somewhere in the future. The future, as I told you, is not very clear. It is unrealized. It has not happened yet. So we leave the future as it is, but we visualize the perfect. The moment you say perfect tense, it means that the action will come to an end. The action cannot continue forever. But continuous means it has to continue for a period of time, for a certain small amount of time. The dog has been barking for many hours. Now, the dog will stop barking likely, soon, or maybe after some more time. So you can easily make the sentence as the dog has been barking. The child has been crying for its mother. So once the mother comes, the child stops crying. The child doesn't cry anymore. So has been crying continuous with a visual factor of perfect. Unlike the simple perfect tense, only the perfect tense where the action, completed action is indicated. The child has cried, or simple continuous tells the child was crying or the child is crying. Here it is the perfect plus the continuous. That you have to keep in mind. Both actions, continuation of the action and ending of the action, both are indicated. Ants have been crawling all over this place. You find that there are ants here, so you use the perfect continuous by saying ants have been crawling. That means you saw it in the past, you're seeing it now. Maybe in the future, the ants will not come here. In certain times of the year, like winter, we don't see many ants. Frogs have been jumping around in the rain. Again, continuous with effect in the present and likely to stop soon. So what you have to do here is, once the rain stops, the frogs stop jumping. That is the implication. So you use the perfect continuous. We have been waiting eagerly for some good news. We have been waiting eagerly. That means good news will come and the waiting will stop. The action will stop. This is indicated by the present perfect continuous form. As I told you, it's a common tense. We use it very often. Now we move to the past perfect continuous. Past perfect continuous, as I told you, is not as often used as the present perfect continuous, but we still use it sometimes, especially when there are two actions, just like past continuous, interrupted action and action which is complete, where past continuous is only continuous action, incomplete action. Here it is a continuous action, completed action, but it is overtaken by another verb, another action. So the two actions are clear, but the first action is completed and then the second action starts, or the second action completes the first action. This kind of meaning you have to have. That point about completion is what the word perfect indicates, and continuous indicates that it is on for a period of time. An action which began in the past, continued for some time, and ended in the past. That ended point is important. The dog had been barking till someone opened the door. Now we had the earlier also, the dog has been barking. That was present form. There, the complete point is not given because completion is expected in future. Here the action is completed in the past. So you see the second one, opened. Someone opened the door. So when someone opened the door, action got completed. Barking stopped. So that action was complete. The dog had been barking till someone opened the door. This is how the past perfect is continuous is used. Someone had been screaming when we approached the house. Again, approached. When we approached, screaming, the sound was going on. But then when we came near, the sound stopped. Someone had been screaming. Now they are not screaming when we came near the house. The cleaner had been complaining about the dirt on the roads last year. So this year the roads are clean. The cleaner is not complaining. Earlier he was complaining that the roads are very dirty. They had been writing a letter when lights went off. So action of writing stopped. Writing, continuous action, suddenly stopped because lights went off. Then you have, I had been speaking for an hour before I heard the bell. Here again, the second action. The person who was speaking had been speaking, continuous, had to stop speaking, complete, because the bell rang. He heard the bell was ringing. He or she heard the bell was ringing. In this way, we use the past perfect continuous form to indicate action which is continuous for the first time. Look at the last word, continuous in the past, completed in the past. Perfect means completed, ended in the past. This is how we understand and we start using the form. Now we come to the future perfect continuous form. You must remember that this is rarely used because it starts in the future, it continues in the future, and it ends in the future. So that is why I told you it's called unrealized tense. It is not a reality yet. So action which will continue and be completed in the future. That is how it is used. Now you have a few sentences, but you must remember that this is a tense which is rarely used. We don't use much of it. But since we are learning grammar formally, since we cannot skip one item, we cannot say that this item we will not do. We can make a choice only in what we use. We can use whatever is most uh, necessary in a particular form in the tense which is required. But we cannot say that we will not learn this. In learning, we don't make a choice. It's only in the using that we make a choice. So since this is completely in the future, it has no reference to the present or the past. We cannot say that it will happen for certain. Nobody knows the future. Therefore, we use this tense rarely. The guard will have been watching the house when the owners are away. So once the owners come, action will be complete, watching will finish, and since they are away for a period of time, the guard has to continue watching. So continuous and perfect, both in the future, we don't know whether it will happen or not. The child will have been learning swimming for a decade before taking part in the competition. Now we can say that the child will learn, simple future, or the child is learning, future continuous, or the child has learned, will have learned, future future perfect, and now we have future perfect continuous. The child will have been learning. So action which is continuous, learning, and which is likely to be completed in 10 years. You can see the decade. Decade means 10 years before taking part in the competition. After 10 years, that action is over and a new action begins, and that is taking part in the competition. No one will have been shopping after dark. It's a place where there are no lights, so people cannot go to shops after dark. So this is a future reference. No one will have been shopping after dark. Even in the future, if unless you provide lights, you cannot really go shopping. I shall have been listening to music if I buy a new system. Now you want to buy a music system. So if you succeed in buying the system, then in future you will be listening to the music. This is all in the future that you have to understand when you are using future perfect continuous. Sometimes it is necessary, but rarely. So please use it very carefully, very judiciously, so that you don't make mistakes in the use of the future perfect continuous tense. Here is a very simple exercise where you have to complete the sentences. The blank space is given where you have to fill in according to the clue that is given to you in the brackets. So Radha, and then you have a blank, classical dance since 5 years. Now you have to use the present perfect continuous of the verb learn. Learn is the main verb. Present perfect continuous form will complete this sentence. So it's a very simple exercise. The minister, then you have a blank, when the news reached him. Here you have to use the past perfect continuous of the verb travel. The verb given is travel, and you have to use its past perfect continuous. The boys, you have a blank, after they work the whole night. Here you have to use the future perfect continuous of the verb rest. Then you have the next sentence, Madhu, and then there is a blank, every morning. Here you have to use the present perfect continuous, and the verb is meditate. Next sentence is the crew, and you have a blank here, on the bridge when it collapsed. You have to use the past perfect continuous, and the verb is work. Then you have the last of the sentences, the gardener, and there's a blank, the bushes during the coming season. Here you have to use the future perfect continuous form, and the verb is trim. Trim is to cut a little, not cut fully, but just a little. Usually when plants are growing, the branches go out of shape, then a little bit of the branches are cut. That is called trimming. You have long hair or you have short hair, you want to cut only 1 centimeter of it, then that is also called trimming. You are cutting some paper and you just want to cut little in the edge, 1 millimeter or two, then you call it as trimming. That is the use of the verb. We can learn vocabulary also from grammar lessons. We can learn grammar from vocabulary lessons. The videos are all interdependent. Please remember that from every video you can learn everything. It is not as though this video only teaches you grammar. It teaches you everything else. Here are the answers. Radha has been learning classical dance since 5 years. The present of the verb, present perfect continuous of the verb learn. The minister had been traveling when the news reached him. Past perfect continuous, verb is travel. The boys will have been resting after they worked the whole night. Future perfect continuous of the verb rest. Madhu has been meditating every morning. Present perfect continuous of the verb meditate. The crew had been working on the bridge when it collapsed. Past perfect continuous of the verb work. The gardener will have been trimming the bushes during the coming season. So you have the future perfect continuous. The verb is trim. These are the answers to the sentences which you had to complete in the previous exercise. With this, we come to an end of the tenses. Now, these are all active verbs. The verb is used in the active form. That means the subject of the sentence does the work of the verb. We shall do the passive verbs, and there we shall talk about passive voice, which many of you have been asking for. So we shall do a chart of passive forms. All 12 forms do not have passive. I will explain that in great detail. That is all for today in this video. Please watch fully. Please share with people because there are many thousands who are eager to learn grammar. They say, have an online class. Please understand that I cannot have online classes for thousands of people. It is just not possible. I do not have the time, I do not have the energy for online classes at an individual level. For your benefit, I'm making these videos. Online class would imply that you will have to pay a lot of money. I don't want you to pay money and learn. Money is not an investment which I'm asking for. Invest your time, invest your energy, invest your concentration, your motivation, all these things. Okay? Everything cannot be bought for money. Many of you say that you have paid a lot of money and learned many spoken English courses. You haven't learned anything. Don't worry about the past. Now start learning in the present. Watch each video and share with all of your friends who are interested so that more and more benefit comes. My energy, which I'm giving to these videos, becomes useful to you. I feel that that's a great thing that is happening. If you don't use the videos, then all the energy which I'm spending, the time which I'm spending, goes a waste. So please watch fully, watch again and again, practice as many times as you require. Some of you might require to listen to the videos only once. Some might require to listen to it 10 times. I cannot tell you how many times you need. It depends on you. So please start the self-learning process. Go ahead and become excellent in English because that will bring you success in every part of your life, in your career and in your personal life, your relationships, everything. Thank you and all the best.